Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always up for an intellectual adventure.
Today we're tackling a story that's shrouded in secrecy and intrigue.
A story of incredible success.
Yeah, success on a scale that most people can only dream of. We're talking about Renaissance Technologies, a hedge fund that's become legendary in the world of finance.
Legendary for their unconventional approach, that's for sure.
Because they didn't play by the usual Wall Street rules.
Instead of relying on gut feelings and insider trading, they assembled a team of mathematicians, physicists,
Codebreakers.
to crack the code of the market itself.
Using algorithms and data analysis way before it was cool.
And they've made billions doing it.
Billions with a B. So how do they do it? What's the secret sauce? That's what we're here to uncover today.
It's a story that involves a brilliant founder with a fascinating past, a culture of secrecy that rivals Silicon Valley.
And a trading strategy that's so complex, it's almost impossible to grasp.
But we're going to give it a shot.
Absolutely. We've got a mountain of sources to dig through. Excerpts from the book, The Man Who Solved the Market, interviews with former employees, some really insightful articles.
Our mission is to understand how Renaissance Technologies became arguably the most successful hedge fund of all time.
And to see if there are any lessons we can all learn from their extraordinary journey.
So where do we begin?
Well, I think we have to start with the founder, Jim Simons. His early life is crucial to understanding how Renaissance came to be.
He was a math prodigy from a young age.
Yeah, drawn to the beauty and logic of numbers.
Earned his PhD in mathematics.
Then went on to work as a codebreaker.
At the Institute for Defense Analyses during the Cold War.
So he's literally cracking Soviet codes. That sounds pretty intense.
It was high-stakes work, demanding a unique blend of mathematical brilliance and creative problem-solving.
And did this experience directly influence his approach to the financial markets?
Absolutely. At the IDA, Simons was immersed in the world of pattern recognition.
Deciphering seemingly random information?
It was all about finding the signal amidst the noise.
And that same principle applies to the financial markets, right?
Exactly. Simons believed that beneath the surface chaos of the markets, there were hidden patterns.
Patterns that could be uncovered through rigorous mathematical analysis.
So he leaves this world of espionage and academia to tackle Wall Street.
What a leap.
It was a bold move, but Simons saw a new challenge.
A new code to crack.
In 1978, he founded Monemetrics,
Which later became Renaissance Technologies.
and his vision from the start was to apply the same data-driven approach he'd used in code breaking to the financial markets.
So he wasn't interested in the usual Wall Street whispers and insider tips.
No, he was convinced that the real insights were hidden in the data.
And instead of hiring seasoned traders, he assembled a team of
Mathematicians, scientists, computer programmers.
people who could see the world through a different lens.
It was a radical departure from the traditional Wall Street model.
That's putting it mildly. So did this unconventional approach pay off right away?
Well, they had early success with currency trading, which validated their data-driven approach.
I bet that gave them a boost of confidence.
It did, and it led them to expand into other markets.
Bond futures,
Yep.
commodities.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Even with all that brain power, I imagine the markets can throw some curveballs,
They faced significant challenges.
especially when it came to making long-term predictions.
The market is a complex beast.
It's influenced by so many factors.
Geopolitics, economics, human psychology, and sometimes their models just missed the mark.
So even with all their sophisticated algorithms, they couldn't predict everything.
Nobody can predict everything.
So what do they do? How do they adapt?
This is where things get really interesting.
Lay it on us.
Instead of trying to forecast these big market swings
They shifted their focus.
to something much more granular,
They zeroed in on tick data.
which captures the minute-by-minute price fluctuations of a security.
It's like looking at the market's heartbeat in real time.
Precisely. And Renaissance believed that by analyzing this tick data,
They could gain insights into the behavior of traders,
and more importantly, predict short-term market movements.
even if it was just for a few minutes or hours.
They were no longer trying to predict which way the wind was going to blow.
They were figuring out how to ride each gust of wind.
And to do this effectively,
They needed a new kind of trading system.
enter Elwin Berlekamp,
Another brilliant mind.
a renowned game theorist and mathematician,
And he was instrumental in revamping Renaissance's trading strategy.
shifting their focus to something called statistical arbitrage.
Okay, now we're getting into the weeds a bit. Break that down for us. How does statistical arbitrage actually work?
At its core, it's about finding tiny mispricings in the market
Tiny discrepancies that most people wouldn't even notice.
and exploiting them with rapid-fire trades.
So they're looking for those fleeting moments when two similar assets,
Are slightly out of sync,
and then they pounce
buying one, selling the other,
and locking in a small profit.
before the market corrects itself.
It sounds incredibly complex.
It is. It requires massive amounts of data
Sophisticated algorithms.
and the ability to execute trades with lightning speed.
And Renaissance had all of that.
They were building a data-driven machine that was unlike anything the financial world had ever seen,
And all this was happening in a relatively small office space above a strip mall.
far from the gleaming towers of Wall Street.
It's an incredible story.
But their success didn't go unnoticed.
Other quantitative firms were starting to emerge.
D.E. Shaw, LTCM. They were all trying to crack the code of the market.
But not all of them were successful.
Some of them, like LTCM, faced spectacular failures.
A stark reminder that even the most sophisticated models,
Can't account for every possibility.
but Renaissance weathered the storm.
And their success can be attributed to a few key factors.
Like their relentless focus on risk management.
Their ability to adapt to changing market conditions.
And perhaps most importantly,
The unique culture they created.
now that's something I want to dig into, because it seems like it was a crucial ingredient in their success.
Absolutely. It was a culture unlike anything you'd find on Wall Street.
So tell us, what made Renaissance different?
It all started with Jim Simons and his vision for the company.
He wasn't interested in replicating that cutthroat, ego-driven culture you often see on Wall Street.
Right, he wanted something different.
Something more collaborative.
He envisioned an environment where intellectual curiosity thrived
A place where people could challenge each other's ideas.
and where teamwork was paramount.
So instead of hiring slick MBAs,
He went after people who might not have fit in on Wall Street.
people from diverse backgrounds with unique perspectives,
He brought in linguists,
speech recognition experts,
physicists, signal processing gurus.
people who on the surface might seem like an odd fit for a hedge fund.
But Simons saw something special in these individuals
He saw their potential to bring fresh insights to the table.
and to challenge the conventional wisdom of the financial world.
It's like he was building a think tank, disguised as a hedge fund.
In a way, he was.
And this unorthodox approach seemed to work, right?
Oh, it did.
Their flagship fund, Medallion, was generating these incredible returns.
Returns that had the rest of the financial world scratching their heads.
But as with any successful venture,
Eventually, internal tensions and external pressures started to emerge.
and one of the most intriguing and controversial figures in this story,
Is Robert Mercer.
Robert Mercer, a name that became synonymous with,
Big data, political influence.
yeah, his story goes way beyond just finance,
He joined Renaissance in the early 1990s.
and quickly became a key figure,
He was a brilliant computer scientist
already making waves in the field of speech recognition,
and machine learning,
and he brought these skills to Renaissance.
helping to refine their trading algorithms even further.
So Mercer was a tech whiz,
Who helped take their trading to the next level.
but his story goes beyond just his technical contributions,
Right. He was also known for his strong political views.
which eventually caused some friction within the company.
He was a libertarian
Skeptical of climate change,
and a believer in limited government
these views weren't exactly common.
in the largely liberal world of academia and science.
I can imagine that led to some interesting conversations around the water cooler.
Oh, there were definitely some heated debates.
But these clashes were largely confined within the walls of Renaissance.
Until Mercer and his daughter
Rebecca Mercer.
became increasingly involved in conservative politics.
Rebecca Mercer, a name we hear a lot in the news these days.
She's a powerful figure in her own right.
And she shared her father's libertarian views.
They became major forces in reshaping the Republican Party.
They were early supporters of the Tea Party movement.
And they became increasingly disillusioned with the GOP establishment.
They were looking for someone who could disrupt the system.
Someone who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo.
And they found that person.
In Donald Trump.
The Mercers saw Trump as the ultimate outsider.
They poured millions into his campaign.
And Rebecca played a key role in shaping his strategy.
And assembling his team.
So their influence extended far beyond the world of finance.
It did. But back at Renaissance, not everyone was on board with Mercer's political activities.
Not everyone was happy with his support for Trump.
And one employee in particular
David Benjamin.
became increasingly vocal in his opposition.
He saw Trump's policies as harmful.
And he felt a moral obligation to speak out.
This created a difficult situation for Jim Simons.
He built a company culture based on collaboration.
An open dialogue.
But Mercer's political activities were creating deep divisions within the firm.
So you have this clash between two core values of the company.
Open discussion versus political neutrality.
What did Simons do?
Initially, he tried to stay above the fray,
Encouraging employees to focus on their work.
to avoid political distractions.
But Majorman refused to be silenced,
He went public with his criticisms of Mercer.
accusing him of racism and bigotry,
This created a huge rift within Renaissance.
and a public relations nightmare for the company.
The situation became untenable.
Majorman was eventually pushed out of the company.
And even though Mercer initially stayed on,
As
the writing was on the wall.
So even though Mercer was instrumental in their success,
His political activities ultimately led to his departure. Yes.
the controversy surrounding him was too much for Renaissance to ignore.
Simons, who was nearing retirement,
Had to make a difficult decision
he chose the stability and reputation of the company,
over his longtime colleague.
forcing Mercer to resign
It was a dramatic end,
to a complex relationship.
and a reminder that even in the world of high finance,
Politics can have a profound impact.
wow, what a story, huh? It's incredible to think about the impact Renaissance technologies has had.
It really is. Their influence extends far beyond just Wall Street.
I mean, they've kind of revolutionized the way we think about investing.
They were pioneers in using data and algorithms to make decisions.
And their success has inspired a whole generation of quantitative investors.
It's almost like they were decades ahead of their time.
They saw the power of data before anyone else did.
Absolutely. Big data is everywhere now.
But back then, they were collecting and analyzing data on a scale that was unheard of.
And they were using that data to make predictions.
Predictions that turned out to be incredibly accurate.
So what can we learn from their story? What are the key takeaways?
Well, I think one of the biggest lessons is the power of interdisciplinary thinking.
Renaissance didn't just hire finance guys.
Right, they brought in people from all sorts of backgrounds.
Mathematicians, scientists, linguists.
They weren't afraid to think outside the box.
And that diversity of thought was crucial to their success.
They were also incredibly persistent.
They faced a lot of setbacks early on.
But they never gave up
They kept iterating, refining their models.
until they found something that worked,
And they were always learning, always adapting.
which is essential in any field, right?
Absolutely. The world is constantly changing.
And if you're not willing to adapt,
You're going to get left behind.
so what does all this mean for the average person?
Well, we're all living in a world that's increasingly driven by data.
The algorithms are everywhere.
They're shaping our lives in ways we don't even realize.
So it's important to be aware of that.
To understand how these algorithms work,
And to be critical thinkers,
we can't just blindly trust the machines.
we need to question assumptions
Consider multiple perspectives.
and make sure that these powerful tools are being used ethically and responsibly.
The story of Renaissance technologies is a fascinating one
It's a story of brilliance, innovation,
and incredible success.
but it's also a story that raises some important questions
About the role of technology in our lives.
and the responsibility we have to make sure it's used for good.
Food for thought, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the enigmatic world of Renaissance technologies. Keep exploring, keep learning, and as always, keep asking those tough questions.